Well, once more into the spare room in our basement to let it act as a recording studio. Welcome to our worship video for Sunday, June 7th. I feel it's important to remind everybody what day it is. Of course, if you're watching this on a day other than Sunday, you'll have to figure out what day it is for yourself. But no real notes on today's worship. I will let you know that there won't be a worship video next week, Sunday, June 14th. I am on vacation for the first time in, actually this year, so getting a Sunday off. So we'll have information in the email that came out with this video, or letting Good News folks know about this video as to where you can watch a different stream, about the same as we tell you every week, but just a reminder. And if you're not part of our email and you came across this through a Facebook link or recommendation, we invite you to look up one of our other Moravian churches, like Millwood's Moravian Church, Rio Terrace Moravian Church, and Holy Trinity Anglican Church and Trinity Lutheran Church as well. They do great work in terms of putting out online worship resources. We usually invite our folks to watch Eileen at Holy Trinity and Trinity's offerings, but Eileen's on vacation too, so but they still put together great worship. Anyways, on with our video for this week. This is the day that the Lord has made.
Let us rejoice and be glad in it.
Every blessing to my heart to sing thy praise. Streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. Teach me some melodious sonnet, sung by flaming tongues above. Praise the mount I'm fixed upon it, Mount of God's redeeming love. Here I find my greatest treasure, hither by thy help I've come, and I hope by thy good pleasure safely to arrive at home. Jesus sought me when a stranger, wandering from the fold of God, He to rescue me from danger, bought me with His precious blood. Oh, to waste how great a debtor daily I'm constrained to be. Let that grace, Lord, like a feather, find my wandering heart to be. Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it, prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart, oh, take and seal it for thy courts above.
Yours the light in creation's dark, separating order from chaos, bringing brightness to the bareness of what once was. And then in Jesus, human flesh articulates your way. For in Him renewal finds meeting, transformation finds focus, and the power of love is unleashed on the world and in the people you love.
You have made your folk and placed goodness in their hearts, not so that it can remain there, impotent and unemployed, but be released and set free, and put to work to overcome what demeans and diminishes. So then, summon out this great energy within us, for love lies latent. Do not let our potential remain silent, nor our godness remain dormant and unfulfilled.
We know of the dark forces that stalk the world in our time, the potency of poverty, the evil of famine and deprivation, the power of greed, the hideousness of war, the fascinations that distract and serve to defocus us. Word of the Father, save us from these, and use us to show yourself to others, so that we ourselves become your life-giving, transforming word.
In the pain of these hateful days, in the anger that calls for revenge, in the fear and suspicion that wrecks our relationships, let our involvement, like the involvement of Jesus, bring hope and radical change to where they need to be.
Trinity of love, draw us into your community of love. Make the ordinary special, the unremarkable sacred, the everyday different and holy, and so and therefore divine.
Make us then more than a group that happens to hold some things in common, more than neighbors who nod to each other in passing and smile the smiles of polite and respectable convention. Make your church a community of friendly companions, and let us be the tasty wine which enlivens experience, so that our own and other folks' living is richer and far more complete. We're starting a 5-week series, which will actually be a 6-week series because I've got a vacation coming next Sunday, June 14th. But we're starting a 5-Sunday series on the book of Job. Seems a little bit fitting and apropos as we're going through some times of suffering that require quite a bit of patience. For this Sunday, we start with Job chapter 1, verses 1 through 22. There was once a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. That man was blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. There were born to him 7 sons and 3 daughters. He had 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 donkeys, and very many servants, so that this man was the greatest of all the people of the East. His sons used to go hold feasts in one another's houses in turn, and they would send and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. And when the feast days had run their course, Job would send and sanctify them, and he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, "It may be that my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." This is what Job always did. One day the heavenly beings came to present themselves before the Lord, and the Satan also came among them. The Lord said to the Satan, "Where have you been?" And Satan answered the Lord, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking up and down on it." The Lord said, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil." Then Satan answered the Lord, "Does Job fear the Lord for nothing? Have you not put a fence around him and his house, and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But stretch out your hand now and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face." The Lord said to Satan, "Very well, all that he has is in your power. Only do not stretch out your hand against him." So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. One day, when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in the eldest brother's house, a messenger came to Job and said, "The oxen were plowing and the donkeys feeding beside them, and the Sabeans fell upon them and carried them off and killed the servants with the edge of the sword. I alone have escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another came and said, "The fire of God came from heaven and burned up the sheep and the livestock and consumed them. I alone have escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another came and said, "The Chaldeans came and formed 3 columns, made a raid on the camels, and carried them off, and killed the servants with the edge of the sword. I alone have escaped to tell you." And while he was still speaking, another came and said, "Your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine at the eldest brother's house, and suddenly a great wind came across the desert, struck the 4 corners of the house, and it fell on the young people, and they're dead. I alone have escaped to tell you." Then Job arose, tore his clothes, shaved his head, and fell on the ground and worshipped. He said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." In all this, Job did not sin or charge God with wrongdoing. Well, thanks to Catherine Schifferdecker from Luther Seminary for the following introductory commentary. The story of Job begins. We are introduced to this righteous man and to the wager between God and the Satan. The Satan in the book of Job is a title rather than a name. In chapters 1 to 2, the word always occurs with a definite article. The Satan's job is to investigate human beings and report on their activities. The word Satan is probably best translated accuser. Chapters 1 and 2 are the setup for the meditation on suffering that follows. Now, the story of Job should be read as a parable, not a historical account. The figure of Job seems to have been known in ancient Israel as a paragon of righteousness. The author or authors of Job used this legendary figure and his story to frame the poetic core of the book, the meditation on innocent suffering. Even the beginning of the book seems to signal this long ago and far away character of the story. There was a man in the land of Uz. No one knows where Uz was. The story is not rooted in history. Nevertheless, it asks important questions, including the Satan's question. Do we love God for what we get out of the relationship, or do we love God for who God is? There's some things to note from this, especially in light of scholarship that indicates that Job is likely the oldest or earliest literature in the Bible. As Dr. Schifferdecker notes, we need to look at the book of Job as a parable, a narrative filled with deep truths about the nature of God, no less real for its origin, much like how we treat the parables of Jesus. This is especially true when we encounter the divine courtiers, the heavenly beings, with the Satan among them. As Dr. Schifferdecker pointed out, worth highlighting again, the Ha-Shatan, the accuser, the personification of great power which wanders about the earth in opposition to God. It's also important to note Job's relationship with his property and his prosperity. That was the basis for the accuser's wager of God. Satan said that the only reason Job was faithful was because of his safety and prosperity, and if given the chance to take that away, we would see Job flee from God, curse God even. So what does this say about Job and his blessing and his relationship with God? And where do we find hope in this narrative, and where does it speak to us today? You've probably heard Job referred to in terms of patience. I can recall my Nana saying something about needing the patience of Job, possibly relating to putting up with me as a child running around her house. Well, that comes from this passage, how he doesn't turn away from God, even when great calamities are visited upon him, and even more so in the next 40 or so chapters, where suffering after suffering is laid upon him. We often think of patience as an admirable human trait. Resilience is held up as a virtue. But this is about much more than patience, much more than just why do bad things happen to good people, everything happens for a reason, God won't give you more than you can handle. It is about having a deep relationship with God when things are going well and you appear blessed. And clearly, Job has this in the early parts of the passage before bad things start happening to this good person. He has land and livestock and a herd of children who grow and prosper. He makes sure to give the appropriate sacrifice after his grown children are out feasting, just in case they did something needing an appropriate action before God. And one of the dangers of the book of Job is making a virtue out of suffering. Looking at this narrative as a parable with larger-than-life characters, and Job, that paragon of godliness, and he suffered, I guess we're supposed to enjoy suffering? Well, that would take away the possibility of hope in this passage. And remember, that's one of the things to look at. If it's just about suffering and having patience, life is tough, and then you die, God actually isn't in charge, or at least is letting some pretty bad things happen. can sometimes feel if we look out the window or look at the news that God is letting bad things happen. And it's difficult to find hope and difficult to show love and live in faith. It's easy to give in to the power of that which is against God, easy to side with the Hashatan, the personification of Satan the accuser. Especially if we look around at what we have lost, what we are missing, and what will never be the same. The pandemic is still in charge of a lot of aspects of our lives, and we have to decide how to balance emotion and data. Data that's hard to understand, like how far aerosolized particles can drift when you are singing. How much do you need to sanitize surfaces if you know no one will be back in a room for a week, and how to work out the geometry of chairs 6 feet apart. That's just what it takes to open a little church for worship gatherings. Like we'd have to double our attendance to push the public gathering size issue. Yeah, the data can be hard to understand. Nobody actually knows why group singing is a super spreader behavior, so no singing for a long time. We're probably safe with 7 days between anyone setting foot in the church sanctuary, but it's best to overreact in a situation like this because we love our people and others. And I now have a spreadsheet with a formula for the calculator to calculate the diameter of a circle with a 3-point equilateral triangle inside that circle with sides 6 feet. Anyways, it's about how far you have to sit about our table. The geometry is the easy part. The emotional heavy lifting comes when you have to figure out which 3 people should sit together at a table and what happens if the Spirit moves someone to break the rules. The questions and their answers and the data, that's hard to accept, and the emotions are real and easy to feel. And that's what is going on in our own lives and households. What about the images and stories we have coming across our various media channels? Stories from 2020 that are different only in details from last year and the year before, and 2015 and 2014 and 1992. The video quality has gone from camcorder tape to blurry cell phones to high definition streaming, but the words and actions are eerily repetitive. We lament over a nation in turmoil and wonder if we can do more than just cry out for justice. We gather and rally to say, well, here too, and we wonder, what more must we do? What truth can we tell? What truth can we listen to and hear? What reconciliation can we humble ourselves into? While doing that, we can slide into despair, and we can find hope. Okay, we can also dig deep and find that patience of Job like my Nana needed to put up with me as a child. Sometimes we need to just have a little patience. The restaurants and arenas will open soon. You can stretch your haircut a bit longer, and you can watch that Disney movie with your kids and grandkids again and again and again. That's patience. But what more can we draw from Job? What more than just be patient when faced with the first 3 major calamities: loss of accumulated wealth, loss of future income, and death of family? Job doesn't say, I guess I'd better have patience. In this parable that tells truth about the nature of God, Job worships. He doesn't say, oh well, I guess my lot is suffering. He worships. He knows that the nature of God is not to reward or punish. The nature of God is to redeem, and the nature of God is to sustain. As Job said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will return. And still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. There's a Sufi story that captures this. It's included in the John Green novel, Looking for Alaska. That's where I first came across it. Oh boy, this name's going to get me. Rabia al-Adawiyah, a great woman saint of Sufism, was seen running through the streets of her hometown Basra, carrying a torch in one hand and a bucket of water in the other. When someone asked her what she was doing, she answered, I am going to take this bucket of water and pour it on the flames of hell. And then I'm going to use this torch to burn down the gates of paradise. so that people will not love God for want of heaven or fear of hell, but because he is God. This week and all weeks, I pray that you will love God and know how much God loves you.
When I survey the wondrous cross on which the Prince of Glory died, my richest gain I count but loss, and pour contempt on all my pride. See from his head, his hands, his feet, sorrow and love flow mingled down. Did e'er such love and sorrow meet, or thorns compose so rich a crown? Oh, the wonderful cross, oh, the wonderful cross, bids me come and die and find that I may truly live. Oh, the wonderful cross, oh, the wonderful cross, all who gather here by grace draw near and bless your name. Were the whole realm of nature mine, that were an offering far too small. Love so amazing, so divine, demands my soul, my life, my all. Oh, the wonderful cross, oh, the wonderful cross, bids me come and die and find that I may truly live. Oh, the wonderful cross, oh, the wonderful cross, all who gather here by grace draw near and bless your name.
We'd like to thank everyone again for joining us this week. And again, thank you all for your faithful financial stewardship and support of Good News Moravian Church and whatever charities and worship communities you are supporting now. May God's blessing continue to be upon you, especially the blessing of a giving spirit. And now may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord lift his face upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord shine the light of his countenance upon you and give you peace. In the name of Jesus, amen.